Welcome, everyone. This is Dennis coming to you live for another amazing packed podcast with an operator in the commercial mobile home space. Tim Woodbridge, thank you for coming on. Before we really start to dive into an amazing opportunity we're going to talk about today, I wanted to quickly talk about this podcast to everyone that watches. So, this podcast is going to go through some changes in the near future. Before, I really wanted to focus on real estate and tied to creative. However, more recently, we started to explore other avenues of creative. So, we're going to have people going to come on that talk about business creativity, meaning acquiring business, whether it's subject to or maybe some other creative option where you can get into an existing profitable business with very little or no money out of your pocket, and sometimes you might actually even get paid at the end. Sub to cars, where you can actually use a car as a asset versus traditional liability. Use Turo and Uber and other income producing solutions. So we'll have people on related to cars and other assets which potentially can look like liabilities, such as jet skis and other potential motorized sports that can be rented out and collected as a profit. So, with that said, today, once again, we're going to talk to Tim. Tim, you are in the commercial mobile space, mobile home space, and I believe we have had several conversations in the past. So, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be on kind of like the ground floor. I love everything creative. I love, doing things a little bit different than the norm. So Tim Woodbridge, I really like mobile home parks. Um, I have seven right now, got a couple more that I'm looking to close in the next month or so. Currently 200 lots, gonna be like 280, I think, when we close the other two parks. And yeah, I love the asset. I love mobile home parks. I love multifamily, but my niche is mobile home parks. Got into it a few years ago. Um, got into my first park for like 6 grand out of my own pocket. And I mean, everything I do is creative. There's I'm trying to think. I don't think there's been one deal that I've done that's like, okay, this is very straightforward. Um, the parks that I'm going to be closing in the next month or so, those are the only so far straightforward. Like, went to a broker, negotiated a price, getting a bank loan and everything. No seller financing or anything like that. So it's funny that the traditional route is more foreign to me than the non-traditional route. So
Very cool. So, can you talk about your first experience at acquiring a mobile park? Was it something that you were just driving, walking by? Was it something that you actually got contacted by a broker? And as you mentioned, you're in a multifamily space. So, why mobile park, and why was your first deal that you basically acquired? Was it? I'm assuming it was a mobile home park.
mhm. So I was like, I didn't know anything about real estate maybe 5.5 years ago. And then, you know, Rich Dad Poor Dad, like everyone reads Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it just changed my outlook on things. And I didn't know the words asset or liability before that time. So it opened my brain. And from there, I just read a lot. I read a lot, listened to a lot of podcasts, was trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do, and listened to Frank Rolfe on the Bigger Pockets podcast with Brandon Turner. And I was like, yes, that's what I like. I like mobile home parks. I like them because, you're basically renting the dirt to someone. um, you know, people they're your tenants are sticky, so you've got people who stay in your park, hopefully, for years and years and years. They own their own homes. Of course, the more I do it, the more I've learned. It's not always like that, but the basics I really liked. And it was like I like multifamily because people always are going to need a place to live, a place to sleep. Um, that's fundamentally that's one of the basic things we need, right? We need shelter. So I love that. Um, there's always going to be a strong market, and then I niche down into mobile home parks because it gives people lower socioeconomic status people the right or the ability to purchase their own home and to have their own space without having to be government subsidized. So it's a really cool space. I enjoy it. Um, and I think you asked about my first deal. I was rambling for a second.
No, this
So
is fine.
my first deal was from the Frank Rolfe Bigger Pockets podcast. Frank said something about mobilehomeparkstore.com, which his partner, I believe, created. And so, I just was browsing on mobilehomeparkstore.com and I saw this deal that had been, it was maybe an hour 15 away from where I live. And it had been on the market for a while. It was, for one price, and per Frank's, basic analysis, it should have been way lower in price. So I call the guy up. I do a little, rapport building. Uh, a lot of the fundamentals of real estate I found it's being nice, being kind, building relationships with people. And so from that building relationships, I made the offer, and again, it was way lower than he had it listed, and so he said, no, I can't do it for that, and he said, I can't do it any lower than this, and that was kind of the in between, and so from there, I said, okay, if I give you that, can we do it? And he said, sure. And I said, will you finance it for me? Because, I was super green, but the local meetups that I was involved in, like their whole thing, they were like old timer Southern folks who were all about being creative and like, we don't like banks sort of attitude. And so that's kind of my real estate training up until then. And so, yeah, I asked, will you finance the whole thing? And he said, I'll finance $50,000 of it.
Mhm.
And I mean, that was a substantial part of what I needed. So from there, I mean, yeah, we did get bank financing on 75% of it, and then his portion that he financed, it made it so my partner only had to bring in 25 grand, and I paid closing costs. So all of a sudden, I have this 36 space mobile home park that I got to figure out how to run.
Wow. So let me kind of go a little bit deep into that, Tim. We have a lot of viewers that watch this that are brand new and they're sitting here and they're scratching their heads. They're looking at multifamily. They're looking at traditional residential, potential up to 4 units, which is a fourplex. Even looking at potentially at other asset classes as far as storage. What one thing that you can say, or maybe more than one thing that you can say that you wish that you would have done differently looking back at it now versus to what you did at the time that potentially could have changed the whole dynamic of your first deal?
Sure. If I was looking at this deal now, I wouldn't do it. There's no way. It was fundamentally a bad deal. But um, if I could go back in time, I mean, I probably wouldn't change much. I maybe a little bit more due diligence on some of like the water sewer stuff. Um, but even then, uh, there's so many things that would have, had I known, it would have scared me off. So I'm glad I got into it, and there's been lots of ups and downs, but I've learned so much through the ups and downs. So like, say I went in and I did some due diligence on the sewer, and I saw, oh, there's some breakage of pipes in these different places. Like, I don't want to buy this, or all sorts of different things. But had I not gotten into it, then I wouldn't have known. Like, what do you do if there's a busted pipe? I didn't know at the time, and it scared the hell out of me, to be honest. Like, this happened, within a few months of us purchasing the park. All of a sudden, there's like sewage coming out of the ground, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, that is such an awful thing. Like, and I had no idea what to do. But I have friends who had been have park experience, and so they said, "Well, you just do this." So without the struggle, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Wow, that's amazing. So you mentioned friends that have park experience. So somebody that's watching this brand new and they're like, I have no idea what to do, but it entices me to look at mobile parks. Maybe I live in an area where there's a lot of mobile parks within my local area. Maybe potentially I also am somebody who understands the economic dynamics and where in distressed times, mobile home parks are potentially more of a profitable option versus then better times to some extent. Um, where would you say that they would be able to get that kind of community? Do they just go to a local RIA? Like, what would you recommend to somebody that's just like, you know what, Tim, I really want to do this, but like, I've besides driving by a mobile park, I've never been in anything related to a mobile park acquisition or even involvement in any way. What would you recommend?
It is very niche. There's a ton of groups on Facebook. I was just on a call a little bit ago, the MHP tribe, um, with Katarina, and Mario, though Mario wasn't on there today. Or maybe he was and I didn't see him. There's let's see, MHP IRL podcast. So like do podcasts and then find the people on Facebook or Instagram or whatever and just reach out. Like there's so many uh, really helpful people in the mobile home park space because honestly, it's a pretty small niche of people. And so, like, there's no one really at my local RIA except my one friend who is also into mobile home parks. Like, maybe there's some people who kind of do mobile home parks, but if you're not finding a lot of people in your area, like just reach out, have Zoom calls, reach out to me. I'm always down to talk with people about things. I like the asset class. I could talk about it forever. And yeah,
That's
let's see.
awesome.
Yeah, Ryan Naris is in Charlotte. He's the MHP IRL guy, and he's like one of the best like go givers I've ever met. Every time I've met him, it's like all this positivity, and he's like super passionate about the asset, and he's like I just want to help. So I love that kind of attitude in the people, man.
Amazing. When it comes to this niche, how is the competition related to multifamily space, for example, or storage units from your perspective? Do you feel like it's because it is a niche and potentially multifamily space might have a lot more opportunities. From your perspective, what do you think this specific niche is? Somebody who's brand new, did nothing with mobile home parks up to this point, can they still be successful? And if they can, what one advice would you provide to them at their start today?
Yeah, there's always deals, like no matter what, like there's always someone looking to sell something, right? For whatever reason. I'd say do the thing that I didn't do and partner with someone who does have the experience. I went in like my partner who brought the little bit of capital that we needed. He didn't know anything about mobile home parks either. So it was a lot of me learning and, struggling forward. I'd say, do yourself a solid and hook up with someone with some experience so they can help you so you don't have to fail at all the things that I had to.
Gotcha. So when it comes to somebody that is going to be approaching somebody of your caliber or maybe other people out there, do they have to have a deal in hand? Is it more for them just to have questions? Um, like, what do you see in your industry? Like, I do see, I'll give you a good example. So, I had somebody that came to me recently, and they're like, I was really trying to partner up with this operator to get involved into their operation because they're local to me where I'm located. But the operator already had things established, right? They had a fairly established team, and they really did not need any of my help. And I was really sad about it because it was just unfortunate. And then they went to a different team, also in the same city, same problem, right? And they're like, "Well, is there any hope for somebody newbie like me to potentially really succeed and find that place with somebody that's successful? Like, what would I have to bring to the table from your perspective?"
I mean, I would bring me capital or bring me deals, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm always down to have calls with people who are super green and they know nothing. And I send them like, a copy of an analyzer I use, not one that I've created because that's not my forte. But I send them that and then like a Loom video that I created. That's like the super basics. And then from there, it's just like, you know look for deals, like make that connection. I didn't know anything when I first connected with the seller of my first park. I knew a little and I read a little, but mostly it was just like a human thing, get in contact with someone. So yeah, maybe I have a little bit more experience than someone who's super new, but that doesn't mean, I mean, I'm only one person. I can't talk to everyone, every seller. I can't. That's just not me. Like my strength isn't in cold outreach. My strength is in making creative deals and in operations. Increasing that NOI to increase the value of something. So yeah, I mean, I'm always down to work with new people. I'm always down to help new people. Granted, I always say this with the caveat, like you have to, if you're new, you have to figure out what you're good at and what you can bring to the table. So
Mhm.
if you're just trying to, like, okay, I have no idea, like, and you're not doing any work on yourself and figuring out what you're good at and figuring out what you enjoy and what your strengths are, then like I can't help you. I can't. I can kind of maybe guide you into like read this book, figure out a little bit on what you're interested in. But like bring always come to every interaction with like, how can I help? Do you have that go giver mentality, and that shit will go far for you.
Yeah, I find that like, and inside of the creative world and Sub Two, I'm actually one of the group leaders for Sub Two in our Northeast area. So I get hit up all the time for questions, partnerships, evaluation, and sometimes it's like, can I pick your brain? Well, that to me is really is somebody who has not really spent the time, and they really don't know what kind of questions they're going to ask. There's so much information out there, even in bigger pockets. You can Google, you can YouTube, and get the information to at least get a foundation. We are very busy operators, investors, and so forth. And we love to spend time with everybody to assist, but we have to also be respectful to our time because we do have other obligations, whether it's family or other businesses that we run and operate, to to really work with people that actually have really got an understanding about the foundation. Um, so that's my answer to that. Let me ask you this question, Tim. When it comes to experienced investors, what do you feel like a good kind of well, so with experienced investors, right? They know capital, they know syndication, and then and they know loans, whether it's bridge loans, commercial loans, so forth. Inside of the mobile park, and I'm not an expert, so this is more of a question, comment/question. A lot of the mobile home parks are not funded by a commercial loan. Is that true?
No, you can get commercial loans. So let's see. My first one I got a commercial loan. The second one it was bought with cash. The third
Mhm.
one's owner finance. Then I just bought a portfolio of four. That's creative finance. But the two ones that we're closing, that's like another commercial loan. So no, like there are commercial loan brokers that specialize in mobile home parks. Check out Judah Adarat. That's
Mhm.
totally mispronouncing his name, but he is a broker who specializes in mobile home parks. Um, and yeah, I mean, the thing with mobile home park loans is you just have to search more, you know? So when I'm looking for like a smaller park, I'm calling all the like 20, at least 20 local banks around the area.
Mhm.
And I'm going to get 19 or 18 no's and then one or two that are maybes, you know? So it's doable. You just have to look a little bit harder or find people like so for Judah, I'm sure him and his team, they're probably uh plus, greater than $1 million loans. Super don't quote me on that. Talk to them because they're nice people.
Right.
But you know, it can definitely be done.
What's your impression why a lot of banks do not want to fund mobile home parks? Any thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, you just gotta get more creative. So on the banks are pulling back right now, and that's just something that we deal with. It's not something to bitch about. It's just like, okay, well, how can we do it? So, um, like, a bank was wanting to lend us 70% on this portfolio I just closed, and they came back with 60%. Another bridge lender like said that they don't have the appetite for mobile home parks at this point, and you deal with what you have to deal with. So it's like, okay, like I totally understand. A bank is very safe. They're trying to do everything they can to be ultra safe. Um, and mobile home park in their eyes isn't that safe bet. It's not an apartment, it's not a single family house. So that's okay. Like, okay, like I respect y'all. You don't want to lend on this, so thank you for your time, but I'll move on to someone else who might lend on it.
Can you 1031 exchange into a mobile park from a multifamily?
To the best of my knowledge, I haven't done it, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't see why not, as long as it's higher, or at least equal, or better value. Or better is the wrong word, but
Yeah. And have you seen syndication done in mobile parks?
yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's the same principle as syndicating anything, right? So I haven't had to yet. Everything I've done is JV, only because they I, they just haven't been. I just haven't had the need to syndicate it. But yeah, you get a lot of people to put $100,000 down, and all of a sudden you have the down payment or whatever you need. I would imagine syndicating would be for bigger things. It would make a lot more sense because, I mean, with syndication you gotta, what is it, 10 to 20 plus $1,000 to get your ppms and everything done. So the size of the deal would need to make sense. But yeah, you could definitely syndicate mobile home parks.
Do you find that it is a job to some extent finding new opportunities? And do you do direct to seller? Do you work only through agents? Like, what's your lead acquisition strategy?
Um, so I'm not great at acquisitions, but really I just talk to a lot of people, and people bring me deals. That's how I got the Georgia deal. That's how I'm getting the North Carolina deal. Yeah, is brought to me by my same partners, but it's like a on market deal. Um, I set up things like in Crexy for like different states and different you know deals that have been on the market for greater than 6 months, or deals at a 8+ cap rate or something. And then I just talk to brokers. Um, Currently, I'm having more luck with brokers than I am wholesalers. Um, it's weird. It seems like a lot of wholesalers are sending out stuff that's highest and best. I'm not a highest and best person. That's not going to be me. I can probably pay more if they can get creative, and I think, you know, like I can thank a lot of people for getting that into my head. Pace Morby, especially included, in terms of, I'll give you your price, you give me my terms, sort of thing. But a lot of wholesaler a lot of wholesalers, not all, but a lot, seem to be bringing like, oh, this person wants to sell, but they don't have to sell, but they'll sell if they can get this audacious price. Whereas with brokers right now, people who are listing with brokers have to sell for some reason. So there's more of an ability to have a conversation there. Like, again, the I'll give you your price, you give me my terms sort of thing.
Yeah. So there is, and I want to talk about this publicly. There is a misconception about broker relationships between residential and commercial. And the way that I can really talk about it is that I just recently had my license with EXP Commercial. They just launched a commercial line, which usually is the CBRE, Marcus and Schlapp's, and other larger
Mm-hmm.
broker firms. EXP launched a commercial line about 2 years ago. And one thing that I found, which was a little shocking to me, there's when you go into a residential space, you have a thing called multiple listing system, and pretty much every municipality, or maybe even I would say county or state, they're going to have an MLS, right? So what that means is that the moment that you put up the property on the market, you have technically in most markets 72 hours to publish it into MLS. What does that do? Well, that basically broadcasts it on Trulia, on Realtor.com, and other websites. With commercial, most commercial brokerages, they do have an agreement with one particular product. I don't want to promote it, so I'm not giving give it a name, but as you mentioned, Crexy is one of them essentially, and other products. But what's different is that in the commercial space, it is very expensive to list it on Crexy. It is very expensive to list it on other solutions that are out there. So a lot of times, why is it broker relationships are important and always been important in commercial spaces? Because most of those deals we will call what's off market. Well, they're not really off market, they're just not visible to a traditional person. And if you think about it, how many eyeballs would come on for a residential property, like, if like something comes on that's like distressed, or potentially even the seller says that they're open to some kind of uh, owner financing, creative financing, or maybe other creative options, that would be like a bullhorn to all of the local investors to start, just going after this deal. With commercial, that's not the case, because every commercial group in most cases is going to have its small network of people that they're networking with and streaming the deals. Now, that's what I've observed. Is that kind of like how you're seeing it, Tim?
Um, yeah. See, I didn't know that about. I didn't know it was pricey to list a commercial deal, but
Yeah.
I can kind of see that. Yeah, it's all about. I mean, broker relations. Again, it's the same thing. It the 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 nuance is different, but it's at the end of the day a people business, right? So it's how how easy are you to work with? How you know can you close? It's I yes, you'll have them brokers bring you pocket listings and stuff like that. And yeah, it is a lot of just relationship building to get to be one of those the people that the broker turns to in terms of, hey, this is you know like, before I get this on market, I'll send it to you. But it's the same. It's on market and off market are relative in a lot of ways in the commercial space in
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because once again, on the market, to me, it's like it's an MLS, and it's like literally, it's spreading to all the tentacles of the internet, and anybody can come in and bid on it. Even during 2020, my wife is a licensed real estate agent in the residential space. They had showings where they literally would take an iPad and just do a panning, and people bought properties that way. No joke.
Hmm.
So, but that's because, people were able to go to realtor.com, type in a house, and boom, that shows up. Yes, we have Crexy. Yes, there's a couple of other sites out there, but there's a lot of times very, I would say, couple of listings that somebody will post, because once again, for each listing they have to pay. At least that's what happened in my situation.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what I would give advice to everybody else is that what I would recommend is going to Crexy and find the people who actually have at least one listing and start building that relationship with them. It's going to take a little bit of time. Uh, Everybody, check out the book by Bu Bear, I believe his name is. I'll post it here somewhere um, after, but it's actually a really good way to learn what it really entails building a relationship with brokers, and that's very important. So, Tim, let's shift a little bit to a deal that you mentioned that you did, where you came into it with really not much out of pocket. In fact, you got paid. From your perspective, when you were going into this deal, did you think right away that that was going to be a creative deal?
um, oh, so yeah, I mean, um, so it's a Georgia four mobile home park portfolio. Um, the thing is, like with so I said I'm not good at acquisitions, but I'm not good at like cold outreach. But people know I'm into mobile home parks, so they bring stuff to me, which is really nice. It's just the consistency of being there and being, active in the space. But anyway, so this deal was brought to me, and the seller wanted way too much, and I said, like I put it in my analyzer. I do a quick analyzer, and I mean, I've used it so many times that I can basically do numbers in my head, but I'll just do a quick analyzer just to give me a rough number. And I'll be like, look, so, um, like, just to be like upfront about all the numbers, right? So, this is how my brain works, is being honest and open about numbers. So I want to say she wanted something like 2.2, if not more, 2.5 maybe. Don't quote me on it, but something like that. And all my numbers said like 1.1 is was the valuation, 1.1 million. And so I was talking to her and just seeing why she's selling. And she, you know, she had all these reasons. Oh well, I like this is why this is what this valuation is, and I'm, you know, I sent her a letter of intent, an LOI, and I was like, I can do 1.1, but I can't even get close to your number. I think I was probably like 1.6 if she got creative. And we didn't come to any agreement, so it's just like, okay, thank you for your time, I appreciate it, I hope good luck to you. And not in a mean way, not like in a genuine good luck to you, because that's probably going to be hard to sell if you're sticking with that price. So I don't know, at least 3, 4, 5 months or so go by. I
Oh,
mean, I
wow.
see I see so many deals that it's hard to keep exact track of when I saw something without actually looking it up. But someone else brought this deal to me. Like they came into my life. Like I had talked to him maybe a year prior, and he's a wholesaler, and he's like, "Hey man, I really need help. I really need to make this deal work." And so it was the same one. And I was talking with the seller again, and I was like, "Look, you're gonna have to finance everything that the bank doesn't finance if you want me to come to your price." And I didn't know that that would work. I a lot of people ask me, how do you know? Like, how do you know what price to offer? How do you know? And I'm like, well, I have a rough idea. And then, I say stuff, and then go back and go through the numbers. So I didn't know that, oh, if I got a bank loan and she financed the rest, I didn't know if that would work at all. I just said, okay, let's start a conversation and see if we can kind of get on the same page. And then from there, we can narrow it down. So, she was already at the point, she's like, yeah, I'll finance 40% of it. She was already prepared for that. Um, which means that she knew that she was asking too much, but whatever, right?
Well, the
Like,
market told her, right? Like I love when sellers put in the prices, and the market tells them that's not what's going to happen, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But like for example, I share a similar story to you, and that's why I think a little bit of misconception is that creative in most cases is not the default. In most cases, most deals are going for a cash or financing opportunity, right? But I always was taught this: if you want the price, you have to agree to the terms.
mm-hmm,
If you
mm-hmm,
if you agree to the price, we can agree to the terms, right? So it's kind of like a reverse aspect, right?
mm-hmm,
And I find that a lot of people, they would call on properties, whether it's residential, commercial, the first thing out of their mouth, which are you willing to do creative financing? And people are like, what is that? Like I think it's just the misunderstanding of what's that. And most times, a response of most people would be no, you know,
mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
and
if you don't understand, it's an automatic no, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So it's all about educating. And that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast as I'm expanding, because the reality is you can technically acquire anything creative. It just really has to be something that you have to structure where it's going to make sense for you and the seller. Because a lot of times what sellers don't realize when they sell, they get hit with a tax bracket. Yes, they have a 1030. That's what I was asking about the 1031 exchange. Because in 1031 exchange, quote me if I'm wrong, but if it's a in order for you to do a 1031 exchange, it has to be a similar property. That's what I was asking about. Can you 1031 exchange from a multifamily into a mobile park, because that's not similar property, but it could be potentially if it has to be similar price, or maybe the income has to be the same that is bringing. I don't know. Like I said, that was my question to you when it came to a 1031 exchange. But what people also don't understand is that a lot of times people are going after price, right? And all day long, we actually have done deals when we actually would give even more than the asking price, but we lowered the percentage, and over a longer duration is the balloon, because it gives me an opportunity to basically make sure that I can refi, right? I can
mm-hmm,
refi,
mm-hmm.
I can sell, whatever my exit strategy is. So, from your perspective, Tim, when you're taking on the mobile parks that you own so far, are all of them value add kind of situation? And is your long term strategy to sell or refi and hold forever?
So far they've all been value add. Even the one I have in Henderson, North Carolina, which is 55 pads, 51 of them were occupied with tenant-owned homes. Even that's like a rent value add. We're fixing up the streets and doing all these other fixes, and so because of that, it's a value add. Um, and I mean, or before we closed it, I walked the park. I like walking parks. I like, having being hands on when I can. And when we closed it, I walked the park. I met as many people as I could, and I said, "We're going to be raising the rent," and it was so cheap then that everyone said that's fine. But are you going to be doing this? Are you going to be fixing the roads, which was the big thing? And we are. And it costs a decent amount of money, but it's definitely a win-win for everyone. Um, but yeah, so if I'm overpaying and I have to refi in a specific amount of time, there has to be some kind of value add component. Um, that to me is the only way it kind of makes sense, because if I have to refi, like how could I do that? How could I overpay and then do a refi in 2 years if there's not that much value that can be added? It just doesn't make sense to me. But for the Georgia parks, it's 77 units and only 47 are occupied. So there is a big value add component. And, yes, I overpaid, but I ended up, I mean, I got hard money down and then the seller carried everything else. So my blended cost of capital is only like 6.9%. Um, Cap rate was like 7.5 at purchase. And I mean, the value add, it's going to ratchet it up a lot to like, I believe it was like 12 at least. Um, and so, yeah, by the time that I do refi, I'll be able to pay out everything. Um, so,
Are
yeah,
you
I mean, you
are
have to
you
be careful.
are you actually like, people own like 1,000 doors, right? But when you really come down to it, are they actually getting a residual income from it? That sometimes is not the case because they have a lot of operators. And the mobile home park is essentially like what I would call residual income there, or is it more when you refi or sell the property, or when you stabilize, I guess?
Gotcha. So yeah, in answer to your other question, I'm very bullish on mobile home parks. I do want to keep them forever.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of, so I want to keep the mobile home parks forever, and then for the like apartment that I have and apartments that I am working on acquiring, those are more of that short term, 5 to 7 buy and sell. But yeah, no, the cash flow is very nice in mobile home parks, and it's one of those things I just want to hold on to.
Got it. When it comes to other asset classes that are, I would say, comparable to mobile home parks, such as RV parks, glamping parks, do you see yourself getting into that at any point? And have you seen any benefits to potentially kind of cross pollinating or cross?
Pollinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say to some extent between that and the RV park, or it's becoming very popular now, glamping resorts. In fact, I actually have a contact that I've built. They're doing glamping resorts next to the Smoky Mountains, and what they're doing is they're actually putting like a whole resort style to it, like where they have therapists there, they have masseuses
Oh.
there, and stuff like that. And I'm like, damn, how much? Like, how do you even? And probably gonna have this person on the podcast too, but like, how do you kind of build that out, I guess, to some extent? But going back to my question to you, do you see any growth in that area as it relates to your business model?
So I don't have any RV parks yet. I don't have any glamping parks yet. My friend Ryan Groney, who is actually the friend from earlier, where I said, when I got into some trouble in my first park and I was freaking out, he's the one who helped me kind of talk through it. But he's been in mobile home parks longer than me. He has RV parks, and yeah, I definitely would like to. I've put offers out on things that haven't worked yet. Um, the difference, like, so for me, I like mobile home parks because it's like low and slow and it's stable. It's people always need a place to live. I don't know how much people always need a place to go travel or go visit. If I was going to do an RV park, I probably personally would feel more comfortable doing like a long term RV tenant sort of park. But that being said, I understand the business model, and I'd be pretty comfortable getting into the RV park space. Um, More niche stuff like glamping or even tiny homes, stuff like that. I don't know so much. I have a friend who wants to get into it really bad, but personally, that's just not for me at this point.
Actually, if you want to connect your friend with me, I actually have several contacts that I've been building. They're building glamping resorts. There's one in Virginia, like I said, and the Smoky Mountains in the Tennessee. So I'd
Sweet, dude.
be happy
Yeah.
to make a connection. So, what advice would you give to inspiring real estate operators, entrepreneurs that want to get into this space?
Find something that excites you and then do it. Like, don't think, I mean, read all you can and figure out all you can, but just do it. You know, like, get in the rooms with people who are doing what you want to do, talk to people who are doing what you want to do, ask questions, but like also accept that you'll never know all the answers. There's always going to be some unknowns. There's always going to be some scary shit, that some black swan event that you could have never foreseen. And then when that happens, you do it the best you can. You know, don't analysis paralysis yourself, because there's always going to be the unknown. Do the best you can and keep moving forward, and fail a lot, you know, fail forward. Um, and yeah, just be a go giver as much as you can. Help people, uh, you know, bring me a deal. Let's take a deal down together, sort of thing. Like,
When it
just
comes
get
when
out there.
when it comes to capital, and that's a lot of times also a barrier to a lot of people. Are you of the belief that you should first find the deal and then go look for capital, or go find capital and then the deal would essentially come to you? Well, like, what side of the equation are you on from your mindset and what you've been exposed to?
Um, so I have always found deals first, and I don't think that's necessarily the right way to do it. That's just how I have done it. Um, I think meet people, you know, I don't know. Um, Meet people and see, like, how can you connect the dots? You know, I don't think it's an either or thing, though it does seem a lot like some people are amazing at raising a ton of capital. Some people are amazing at finding deals. Some people are amazing at something else. Like, um, I think maybe before you try to decide, you know, try different things out. You know, see what you're good at, see what you're not good at, and then do the stuff that you're good at. And really, so what I would say is just keep showing up, right? So keep being in that space, keep talking to people, keep saying, like, just, you don't have to know everything, but the best thing you can do is keep being present and keep being around people who are doing like interesting stuff that you would like to do. Just don't give up. It takes a lot of time, and it a lot of times feels like you'll never get there. But if you keep doing like small action steps, you know, keep putting out letters of intent, or keep talking, you know, posting on Facebook about uh, uh, things, you know, to get potential investors involved. Keep talking to brokers, building those relationships. You know, stick, keep keep things simple, and then just keep doing it.
Got it. Thank you so much. This was a lot of action packed information. Thank you so much, Tim, for making yourself available. Come out. I know that a lot of people are going to take value from this, and if they want to, we're going to do 3 questions. But before I do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about where can people reach out to you, send you deals, maybe talk to you about questions that they have. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure, sure. Um, First of all, can you hear? There's like a ton of frogs outside my window. I love being in South Carolina. It sounds like super loud to me. Does it sound okay to you?
It sounds like there's frogs outside your window.
Perfect. um, okay, okay. Um, so yeah, Tim Woodbridge on Facebook, Tim.Woodbridge on Instagram. Um, I'm, you know, part of a lot of mobile home park groups, especially on Facebook and whatnot. I mean, Tim Woodbridge on LinkedIn, whatever. It's easy to get a hold of me. It's easy to find me. Um, you know, my Calendly links on my Instagram and on my Facebook. So by all means, you know, I'm always down to talk with people. I like this stuff a lot, and I like meeting new people. So hit me up. Let's talk.
Thank you so much for that. So the 3 questions. Question number 1: if you can have dinner with a historical figure, who would it would say, alive or not alive? Who would it be and why?
Oh man, that's The historical David Bowie. I love David Bowie. When he died, I got a tattoo of his last album art on my arm. I'm a musician. You see the keyboard
Yep.
there.
Yep.
I love David Bowie because he was always about pushing the envelope and going and doing things that were, just going a little bit further, and going into a place where you're not quite comfortable, and recognizing that that's the place where you can do something exciting.
Very cool. Question number 2. If you can travel anywhere in the world that you have not traveled to yet, what would that be?
Um, that's so hard to pick because there's so many amazing places. I want to go to Iceland, and I want to see Bjork play with an orchestra, which I mean she always does, and then I want to see the Northern Lights and then just explore all of it. And that's not like this is a bucket list place. This is just like the next interesting place I want to go to and like do those two things. So I want to see every place, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
Love it. And question number 3. If you can possess a superpower that will help people, what would that be?
Probably, it'd probably be something empathy related, right? Like, so super understanding of people, and being able to put yourself into someone's shoes and see why they're doing what they're doing, and realizing that everyone's just trying to do the best they can. Maybe a little bit of super grace and super forgiveness for everyone, including yourself. How about that?
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for spending the time with us today. And everybody that's watching, make sure you reach out to Tim. He's definitely a go giver with lots of inside information as it relates to mobile home park. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.